Welcome to Smash Metafiction. This week, we unearth the pieces of our favorite old stories and stitch them together into a brand new abomination that we like to call Collaboratory. My name is Claire, I am your host. Joining me this week are Meg and Bob.
It's a shame that we're going to have to sell the lab after this episode. It's like mad science doesn't pay that well.
Dan Karen.
I mean, it probably has something to do with the fact that there's just cat hair all over this lab. This is like a very non-sterile experimental environment.
We've made nothing but cat monsters.
And we have a very special guest this week, lead character designer from Archer. It's Shannon Manor.
Hi! Hopefully I can help the resale value of this mad science lab.
We can put a little plaque on the wall. Shannon Manor was here.
That's right.
The Shannon Manor Memorial Laboratory.
Oh, I like that.
Memorial? I don't like the sound of that.
I don't know. Honor. What do you call it? Because can't you have a memorial thing before somebody's passed away? Like, can't you get a hospital wing?
No, I think a memorial usually means that they've died.
Oh, okay. Then we're going to concoct an elaborate ruse where we say that Shannon is gone now.
If it will get it a cool name, I'm fine with it.
All right, so for those of you who have not listened to Collaboratory before, the way it works is that we have all secretly brought a character that we like from some pre-existing piece of media. One of us has brought a setting, one of us has brought a goal, one of us has brought a MacGuffin, and one of us has brought a genre. We are going to simultaneously, well, not, I guess, simultaneously, because that would be a giant mess of sound, but we will sequentially reveal what everyone has brought, and then from that giant mess of stuff, we're going to write a brand new high-concept movie using all of these ingredients as jumping-off points. So, without any further ado, it is time to open the Tupperwares, unwrap the foil, and see what everybody brought. First, we're going to do characters. So, Shannon, who did you bring this week for your character?
My character, I brought Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood.
Oh man.
Wow.
Because I like
choice.
boring movies and bad characters.
So, okay, that's great. Tell us a little bit about who Daniel Plainview is and what sort of archetype he represents to you, what it is you like most about him that you want to preserve.
Well, he's the main protagonist of There Will Be Blood, but he's also kind of the villain of the story, which is what I find interesting. He's like, basically everything that's wrong with capitalism put into one man.
Oh, wow.
He's greedy, he is an oil baron, he's manipulative, he's power hungry.
Big fan of milkshakes.
He's a big fan of milkshakes.
All right, next up, Megan Bob, what did you bring this week?
Even now, I am still debating, but I think I have to go with what's in my heart. And what's in my heart is Gonzo from the Muppets.
Oh, man.
Okay. We are off to an interesting start.
I just love Gonzo so much. I guess he's the archetype of kind of an outsider, but I mean an extreme outsider in that until very recently, he did not even know what species he was or where he came from. Just kind of the weirdo.
Prone to comedic pratfalls, I suppose. In love with chickens, kind of the butt of the joke, but sweet in his own way.
Yeah, and passionately interested and excited about things. To the point that he could easily get injured at any point, but is so excited it doesn't really matter.
All right, Dan, who did you bring for your character this week?
I brought the character of Starscream from the Transformers.
Yay!
Dan, tell us about Starscream.
Starscream specifically from the G1 Transformers, the 1980s cartoons. There have been like a lot of different incarnations of Starscream because there's a lot of different incarnations of the Transformers. From what I understand, like he more or less retains his core from iteration to iteration. I know him best from the 80s cartoons, so that's what I'll be speaking to. Starscream is a member of the Decepticons, which are the evil robots from Transformers. He's the second in command of the Decepticons, with Megatron being the head one. Starscream is this delightful combination of dishonest, ambitious, treacherous, a suck-up, and a giant coward.
Yeah.
He's always looking to become the leader of the Decepticons, and so anytime that it looks vaguely like Megatron might be hurt or dead or gone forever, Starscream immediately declares himself the new leader of the Decepticons, and then as soon as Megatron shows up fine, which he always does, Starscream immediately reverts back to being this, like, pathetic toady. I adore this combination of traits, which is, like, someone who's evil, but also, like, completely ineffectual, and is, like, ambitious, but has no spine whatsoever.
All right, I am up next, and I brought the character of Fujimoto from Ponyo.
Ooh, okay. Which one is Fujimoto? It's been a long time since I saw that movie.
Yeah, that is Ponyo's dad.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
He is referred to as a former human, a phrase that is never fully explained. He marries, like, this goddess who's this, like, queen of the ocean type. He has turned his back on humanity, thinks that humanity's all worthless, but over the course of the movie, his heart slowly kind of melts a little bit and he warms up. So he's kind of like a misanthropic, wise man, expatriate, is what I would call this archetype. It sort of shares some common stuff with, like, the Grinch or whatever, or I guess, like, Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. That kind of general archetype of just a real bastard, but there's, like, a soft heart underneath that can be redeemed.
Wow. Okay. A little bit of crossover with Mr. There'll Be Blood over there.
Yeah, except I think they're very different on the inside, is the thing.
Yeah. There's no redemption for Daniel.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have 3 characters who are at varying points on, like, the bastard scale, and then just Gonzo floating out in space.
That's how he would want it, though.
Yeah, very much so.
All right, so next up we have the side dishes. In addition to bringing characters, each person here has also had to bring a side dish, either a setting, a goal, a MacGuffin, or a genre. So, Shannon, you are up first. What side dish did you have to bring this week?
I brought the MacGuffin, and this is going to reveal the 2 sides of me. The MacGuffin I brought is the Silver Millennium Crystal from Sailor Moon.
Okay, that's great. Tell us about the Silver Millennium Crystal and what you like about it as an archetype.
Oh, I guess it's just an all-powerful crystal that everyone's looking for that is inside someone pure of heart, which I think there's only one choice in this setup.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Gaza's gonna die.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't know what else. It's like a huge power source. It ran a country on the moon. Which is the worst way I could describe what's going on in Sailor Moon.
I don't know, man. The connections to Gonzo are just growing stronger the more you talk about it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, man, we have to work in a part where Gonzo undergoes a Sailor Moon-style transformation. It just has to happen.
So, Megan Bob, what did you bring this week for your side dish?
I have the genre. I decided to bring sword and sandals.
Oh, man.
Okay, tell us about the sword and sandal genre.
Well, I saw Gladiator at a young age, and it really made an impression on me. And then I also saw Troy. So I just have a real thing for people in leather sandals and, like, waving a sword on a beach. I don't know, man. It's just real cool. But I also like that it is essentially big sweeping bullshit is the underlying theme of all sword and sandals. Like, we have to win the thing because we have to win the thing. Probably also the gods, etc., etc.
Awesome. Well, okay, we got a bunch of words on a piece of paper so far, so let's see how things finish off here. Dan, what side dish do you have to bring this week?
I brought the goal, the one from the movie Homeward Bound, which is to travel across a large and either hostile or indifferent landscape in an attempt to get home, which is a very long distance away.
Do we have the Odyssey? Are we telling the story of the Odyssey?
I think we just made the Odyssey. I've always thought Odysseus was a real Gonzo type.
But it's going to end with Gonzo being the moon princess.
Is that not how the Odyssey ends?
I'm going last. I had to bring the setting, and I decided to bring a setting that I really enjoy a lot. That is a thing I've not seen in a lot of other places. It is my favorite corner of the world of Overwatch. The setting that I brought is Junkertown. In the world of Overwatch, it takes place in the future. There was a robot uprising, and at some point during the robot uprising, Australia got nuked. So the rest of the world remained futuristic, but Australia got sent into, like, Mad Max times for, like, a few decades, and even though it kind of recovered and reconnected with the rest of the world eventually, it's like this indelible mark has been left on the culture of Australia, and everybody from Australia dresses like Mad Max characters, and, like, the level of technology present there is a lot lower than everything else. The part of this that I thought was the archetype that I liked, it's a post-apocalyptic corner of an otherwise futuristic world.
that's in Sword and Sandals.
Yeah. Or at least maybe this is the sword and sandal portion of it, and maybe the rest of it isn't. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I could see that working.
So it's gonna be like cyberpunk sword and sandals?
Yeah.
You know, cyber swords and laser sandals.
So the next step we have to do is we have to come up with the log line. We have to attempt to take all of these pieces and fuse them together into eventually one sentence that would be the high concept pitch for this as a movie. The idea of a high concept movie is that the basic idea of it can be conveyed in a single sentence, and at the heart of it is some sort of strange juxtaposition or fish out of water story. You can explain it in one sentence and people are like, oh wow, that's a really cool idea for a movie. So let's get started. What parts of this are either jumping out at people as it's very clear how this has to be, or are there any parts of it that you look at this and you're very concerned about? Like, okay, how are we going to solve this problem? I think either of those are good places to start.
Well, I think we kind of already talked a bit about how we reconcile Junkertown and Sword and Sandals. The first question that I have is, who is our protagonist? Gonzo is kind of an obvious choice because he's like the best person here, and the rest of them are kind of, as we mentioned, like varying degrees of bastard. But he could also kind of be the goofy sidekick to a person who is maybe like on a path of redemption, and that's the story we're telling. I feel like Gonzo's the person who has the Millennium Crystal, right? Because he's like the purest of heart out of everyone. He's also like the weird outsider.
Yeah, he's from the moon for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Fujimoto's a good choice for a potential companion for a main character who could be redeemed, even though he starts off as a bit of a bastard. The other thing about him is he's kind of like a weird magic scientist alchemist guy. If they're living in like a sword and sandal world, he could be some sort of keeper of lost knowledge of the way that things were before. And maybe like Gonzo is some mysterious being who falls to Earth or something that he finds and studies or believes is the key to getting off the planet or something like that, you know, restoring the lost technology, something like that. I don't know.
Shannon, I'm curious, do you feel like Daniel has any protagonist potential, or do you feel like he's best suited as an antagonist?
I think he could fit as an antagonist in this area, especially if we're using Junkertown as the setting, because I feel like that would be an area that, like, he could easily, like, manipulate to get in his pocket.
If we're traveling across a territory to try to get home, it might be nice to have more than one antagonist pursuing Gonzo as the MacGuffin. So, like, we could have Starscream and Daniel as two different antagonistic forces that we're bouncing back and forth between. Sort of like in the first episode of this we did in Here There Be Dragons, where we had the pirates and then we had the investigator. You know what I mean? I think that, like, if you're facing the same antagonist over and over again throughout the entire thing, then it might not feel as, like, Odyssey-like, in that, you know, like, we want, like, facing different conflicts along the way. I don't know. What do you think about that?
If we want two antagonists, then I think Plainview and Starscream are the obvious choices. I think that would make Gonzo and Fujimoto kind of like co-protagonists, where like Fujimoto's maybe the only person who actually knows what's going on with Gonzo and with this crystal and everything, and is like trying to get Gonzo out of danger maybe, or Gonzo is like relying on him to help him out and he's kind of going along reluctantly, and then they have like these two separate evil forces that are coming for and competing with him.
This is oddly turning into Stardust.
It is turning into Stardust.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
I think that's the way to go if we want two antagonists, is to have Fujimoto be this, like, expert that is traveling with Gonzo, possibly, like, against his will.
Yeah, and he's probably going to start off similarly to the guy in Stardust, like wanting to use him selfishly, but then maybe we'll see if he becomes less selfish as it goes on or not. That will be like his kind of big test to see if he can do that. Yeah, Starscream and Daniel Plainview are like that prince guy and then the witches in Stardust, the two antagonists.
You know what would be interesting is if Fujimoto, we've established he's kind of like a scholarly figure, but he's like living out in this nuclear wasteland. But we've also established that like there's a wider, more advanced civilization beyond the borders of the wasteland. It would be interesting if like he was exiled or something from the prosperous areas of the world, possibly because he had like these crazy theories about magic moon crystals. So his goal starts being he like finds Gonzo and he's like, oh, if I can get you back to civilization, I can like prove that I was right this whole time and then regain this prosperity that I've lost. But he like, you know, learns a greater lesson about treating Gonzo like a person, and maybe like, you know, there's more to the moon crystal than just his own kind of worldly concerns.
What if this is like a prison planet?
Ooh.
Oh, some real
Okay.
crematoria stuff.
It's like an advanced galaxy kind of thing, but then this is a planet where it's just like a desert, and if you're troublesome, they just drop you off, and then there's no way to get off planet. Maybe one of them is like an official authority, and the other one is some sort of like criminal who's taken control of a city there or something like that, you know? And then Fujimoto was exiled for his like dangerous ideas or whatever.
I feel like that would work into the sword and sandals too, because if it's a prison planet, they're not going to have a lot of things available, so they would have to go more sword and sandals.
Yeah.
Since Starscream, I think he works best if he's not the actual guy in charge, because he has to be the second in command to somebody. He should be the second in command to some warlord, and he's trying to prove himself by capturing Gonzo, i.e. like Prince Zuko trying to capture the Avatar. Oh, I know what I think we should do with Daniel Plainview. Okay. It's like all sword and sandal, and he's not from the planet. He arrives from off planet in like this super fancy like spaceship, and he gets out and he's like all dressed in this like nice suit and tie, and he's from like, you know, centuries later than everybody else, and he has like his nice mustache, and he's like just, you know, super suave, but he's like a unscrupulous like treasure hunter smuggler type who is aware that Gonzo fell to this planet, and he's trying to like track him down, and he's like just has all this great technology, and he's like throwing money around trying to get him, but he's like acts very respectable in that way that Daniel Plainview does. But then he's like, he becomes super cold when he needs to be, but he has this like air of civilization that's like contrasts him with everyone else.
Yeah, I think that would work really well for him, because he does the whole thing where, like, you know, he uses the people around him as, like, a shield to fake that he's on the same level as everyone else, but then, like, him by himself is a totally different person.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and this has nothing to do with like what we're actually doing here, but I just want to share with you guys that I have this image of this character in my head, and he's wearing a tie, which is like, you know, the little like stock ticker things that like go at the bottom of the screen during a newscast that like show which stocks are up and which stocks are down.
Yeah.
Like it's that. Like he's getting a real-time information about stocks, and it just like scrolls up his tie, up his future tie.
Or it's on his tie clip.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
That's
again,
great. I love that.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that was in my head, and I needed to get it out there in the world.
Thank
All
you.
right. It's canon. It just happened.
Great.
All right. So, what is the place that Fujimoto and Gonzo are trying to get to, and what's going to happen when they get there? Is it maybe some like old derelict spaceship, and they think he can power it so they can get off planet, or is it some like terraforming device that can make the planet better? I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Like some different ways we can go with this.
It could be that. Like, it could be there's like one ship on the planet, or like there's like one base where they bring in new prisoners, and that's the only place that spaceships will ever touch down. If we want Fujimoto's goal at first to be like a search for respectability, it could be that there's a place on the planet where you can appeal your case.
Oh, yeah.
If you're able to, you know, find evidence that you were imprisoned wrongly. He's wanting to get there under the assumption that if he can show the people there that his theories were correct, he can get off the planet, like, legitimately, instead of just escaping.
Right. It'll be something like this weird alien proves one of his theories if he can show it to somebody. But you could do the kind of thing where, like, if the authorities get their hands on him, they're gonna, you know, chop him up into little pieces and study him or something like that. So maybe his journey becomes to, like, not try to use Gonzo for his own self-interest kind of thing.
Right. You know, sacrificing Gonzo is not worth the restoration of his reputation.
And if we had a spaceship as part of that goal, like, his original intentions could be go somewhere else for his own self-interest, but when he has his character arc, it's to take Gonzo back to the moon.
Yay.
That could work, yeah. They steal a ship together and return him to his people in their, like, hidden colony in the moon, whatever. Okay, yeah. Okay, how about this? There's aliens that live on the moon of this planet, and they use magic to hide the fact that there's aliens that live on the moon. Okay, our log line. A misanthropic scientist exiled to a prison planet for his crazy theories about aliens finally finds evidence of his theories in the form of an alien who he then has to decide whether or not to sell out / betray to prove his theories, or, you know, learn to treat this alien as a human and live with the fact that no one will ever know that he was right. While being pursued by assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
You bring up an interesting point in that logline. Do we want to say that this sci-fi setting does not have aliens aside from Gonzo? You know, it's sort of like the movie Alien, where, like, the start of the movie, there's been no contact with extraterrestrials. We've explored portions of the universe, but as far as we know, we're the only ones out there.
I weirdly like it if there are other aliens, but it's the fact that these aliens have magic, and they're like, that's what's weird, and that's that's what's amazing. Like, people can believe in aliens, but they're like, magic? That's bullshit.
I do like that feeling of that going out into space and then there's no aliens and suddenly it's very like the universe is a very cold and lonely place in that vein of Aliens, except it'd be like if in the movie Alien, instead of finding a xenomorph, they found Gonzo. So that'd be a very different movie.
Why couldn't they have made that movie?
Let's go with the second one then. I think that one works.
There are aliens, but the discovery is magic.
So now, next up, we have the beat sheet. We are going to work our way through an abridged version of the different steps of the screenplay as advocated in the screenwriting book, Save the Cat. That book has like 15 or so. I made it 12 for this show. So because we got stuff to do. We got places to be. These 12 steps are opening image, theme stated, catalyst, break into act 2, B story, fun and games, midpoint, bad guys close in, all is lost, break into act 3, finale, and closing image. So the first step is the opening image. We are going to get a snapshot of who our main characters are and what they want. They should be in a relatively stable situation, but there should be something in their life that needs fixing as well. They will generally also need to learn some sort of lesson. I'm assuming we're starting on Fujimoto, correct? Or do we want to start on like Daniel Plainview, like prologue of Daniel Plainview tracking Gonzo through space or something?
A little screaming meteor heading towards the planet.
Do we want to maybe say that Plainview is the reason why Gonzo fell from the moon in the first place? Like, maybe he sent some mining bots up to the moon to see if he could, like, get at this magical civilization that he suspects is down there, and, like, in the process, Gonzo was dislodged or flew away, or maybe he even, like, captured Gonzo for a bit, but, like, as he was flying away, Gonzo escaped and crashed down on this planet. Do we want to say that Plainview's actually the reason that Gonzo is here?
Yeah, okay, this is great. I really like this. So we can have, say we have Gonzo on his, like, homeworld, and there's this, like, robot that's walking around, this, like, mining robot. It's like a surveying thing that he sent it out looking for prospects, and it has, like, a little bin. It's, like, collecting soil samples, and Gonzo's, like, scoping it out, and he, like, falls into the little bin, and it closes up, and then it's like, oh, I'm full, and then it flies back up to Daniel Plainview's ship, and then it opens up to show him all the mineral samples, and Gonzo, like, tumbles out.
Claire, do you realize you have just replicated the opening of the terrible movie Mac and Me? Because that's exactly what happens at the beginning of that movie.
I do not. Is that what happens in Mac and Me?
Yes,
I did not see.
But that's
okay.
all right. So this is now a remake of Mac and Me. I want everyone to know.
Well, great. We did it. We made Mac and Me.
I mean, they say great minds think alike, you know? I think we should bring Ronald McDonald into this movie, too.
Yeah, we'll have the dance scene at McDonald's later. Don't worry about it.
So how does Gonzo get off? Does Gonzo just like do magic stuff all the time in this? Does he just like defy reality all around him? Or is he maybe like, is he bad at magic? Or like, what's his deal?
Oh,
you know?
I want his magic to be like so just that he's really good with paper clips or something so ridiculous.
He's just good with close-up magic.
Oh, that's
yes!
great. Yeah.
I just, because I love that Gonzo's thing is kind of underwhelming. Like, he is an alien. He is from somewhere else, but ultimately you're like, oh, what a dork.
Yeah, it's like you are technically breaking the laws of physics doing this stuff, but it is also kind of lame.
Yeah.
That would be interesting if he's really into close-up magic and has like some magic powers, but he doesn't use them because he thinks it's cheating and he wants to get good at close-up magic without using magic.
Oh, that's such a Gonzo thing.
Yeah, I like the idea of him being very much like Orko in this, you know, where he has potentially like a lot of magic, but he either sucks or doesn't really want to use it for actually like useful things.
That's really good.
I can't believe you compared him to Orko.
I like the idea that, like, Gonzo uses his lame magic to surprise Plainview and his men to the extent that he's able to get away long enough that he falls into an escape pod or something and, like, ends up getting launched down to this prison planet below. Plainview is like, all right, we need to go find where that escape pod landed and catch that creature so we can butcher him and sell him.
That sounds great. Okay, so in terms of Fujimoto, what's his opening image like? What's his, like, stable situation? What needs fixing in his life? All that kind of stuff.
He's a researcher, and he's on this prison planet, but it sounds like a lot of his research was based around this moon. So I wonder if maybe he has like an observatory set up. You know, he has like a little hut with like a kind of cobbled together telescope, and he's like stargazing when he sees this meteorite come down through the atmosphere and land somewhere nearby. You know, so he's the one who spots Gonzo coming down in the first place.
It would be interesting since this is supposed to be like a really, you know, sword and sandally planet, if he kind of had a little bit of like Doc Brown in Back to the Future 3, where he is kind of like the science guy for like this town that has very poor technology, and he has like some very rudimentary machines and that's his job to like invent things, but it's all like very clunky because he doesn't have very good parts for anything, you know?
Oh, I like that.
He's, eking out this existence on this prison world, but he's always, looking at the stars, spending a lot of time thinking about his previous life that he wants to return to when he sees this streak of light in the sky and thinks it might be something from the moon and decides to go and investigate.
Cool. That's kind of the catalyst, actually.
Yeah.
We may have to switch the catalyst and the theme stated, the order of these, but I will just kind of state that we're doing both of these right now, it seems like. So, theme stated, that is where at some point, some character is either going to state the theme of the movie, or they will state the exact opposite of the theme of the movie. But the purpose of this is just to plant a seed in the audience's mind about the sort of thematic territory that we're dealing with in this movie. And then by the end, this statement that this person said is either going to be proven correct or proven incorrect. So that is going to happen at some point in here. The other thing that we are doing at the same time, though, it sounds like is the catalyst, which is the next step, where something comes along that shakes our main character out of their normal day-to-day and sends them on the path where they go on some sort of quest, do some sort of new thing, and that will be Act 2. So what form is all of this going to take?
I feel like this would be a good spot for Plainview to state the opposite of the theme, like he's talking about using Gonzo as basically a tool instead of treating him like a person.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe we could have this kind of scene where Gonzo and Fujimoto hang out for a couple minutes, and then Plainview shows up, and then Fujimoto has to hide Gonzo from Plainview as he's like looking around Fujimoto's place, and he's like, I haven't seen anything fall from the sky. You're seeing little aliens, huh? Well, the magic people who live on the moon, that's a funny story. But Fujimoto's acting like he doesn't believe him.
So Plainview shows up in this little town because like this is, the nearest settlement to which the escape pod landed, and he sees that there's this house with a telescope sticking out, and he like goes there to talk to this scientist and see if he saw anything. And like by this point, Fujimoto has taken Gonzo back to his house. He's sort of, been patching him up a bit, trying to get a straight answer, but I imagine Gonzo is, easily distracted and not one to tell a concise and informative story. So he hides Gonzo, Plainview comes in, and maybe Plainview could even like recognize Fujimoto and be like,
yeah.
Wait a minute, aren't you the scientist that was talking about magic moon people and got exiled because he was crazy?
And he's like, yeah, I don't believe in magic moon people anymore. That's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, Plainview talks to Fujimoto and is maybe suspicious of Fujimoto, and also Fujimoto realizes that Plainview is after Gonzo. I think this conversation is actually kind of the catalyst because, like, Fujimoto realizes after talking to Plainview that Gonzo is kind of his ticket out,
Right.
Like, that's his ticket back to civilization.
And the theme stated, Plainview can say this to Fujimoto during this scene. You know how valuable that thing is? Do you know what your life could be if you hand that over to the right authorities? That kind of thing,
Yeah.
At this point, it seems like it's about time for our protagonist to save a cat. This is a point in the story where the protagonist does something that, even if they're like a bit of a jerk, you say, this is a cool guy. They take some sort of action that endears them to the audience so that we get on board with them and want to support them and want to see good things happen to them. Is it just him saving Gonzo? I mean, that's a pretty good save the cat moment.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we have our catalyst. Next up is break into Act 2. This is where our main character makes some sort of choice, crosses a threshold, leaves their normal world, and enters the topsy-turvy world of Act 2. What do you guys think this looks like?
I mean, I think after his discussion with Plainview, he decides to take Gonzo, maybe like pack up a crappy little pickup that he has or something, and start heading across the desert to this one like base or whatever that he wants to get to in order for him to present his evidence of Gonzo. But I think that also because, we still have this other villain waiting in the wings, that around this time he needs to have an encounter either with Starscream or with some of Starscream's men who catch on to the fact that he has this weirdo magic creature, and they also begin to covet Gonzo and his power. That's when we also start seeing these like these warlords coming after him too.
We could maybe introduce them as either the B story or introduce them during the fun and games section. Mm-hmm. We could do it now if they live in the same town as him. I think we should do that a little bit later. Okay, so they pack up all their stuff, they head out. What sort of a vehicle are they traveling on? Do they have like a mount? If we want this to be proper sword and sandal, we don't want to give him like, a steampunk motorcycle, I don't think, right?
Oh, I want it to be horses or just like a goat cart.
Oh, goat cart is very good.
What if it's a goat cart, but the cart is like a non-functional pickup truck.
These goats are so swole.
It's got like a wobbly wheel, so it's always off center and knocking things out.
So now we are going to have the B story. The B story is going to be a tonally different, lower stakes counterpoint to the A story. It will oftentimes, but not always, be a friendship or romantic relationship. There's a few ways we could go. We could have this be the relationship with Fujimoto and Gonzo. We could have this be the Starscream stuff. What do you guys think?
Is Starscream going to become less of a dick by the end of this?
That's the question. We're going to find out.
Yeah, maybe.
Then in that case, we should have the B story be with him.
You think?
If we want him to have some sort of, either something really big has to happen, he has to have a realization if he's going to change, or there has to be some sort of slow process that we get to see him go through.
I'm down with that. We can turn his stuff into the B story. At this point, like, they start being pursued by Starscream and his gang.
Yeah, I think we could actually start this off from, like, we could cut to Starscream's perspective and, like, see what his day-to-day life is, and then he stumbles upon this opportunity when he, like, runs into them. But we, like, get to see his life a little bit before then.
Can we say that he and his gang they're the robot gang? That's their thing.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we were going to make him an actual robot or not. You want him to be a robot from the robot gang?
Look, if this is the way it's going...
All right, no, I'm down. Here's what I think his opening thing is. There's the robot boss, who is standing over some old robot bodies that they find out in the middle of the wasteland. And there's, like, robot vultures eating them for robot parts. And then the boss comes up and, like, fires his gun and the robot vultures scatter. And then he comes up and is, like, pulling out parts. He's like, oh, we got so much good stuff there. And Starscream's like, hey, is there a new, like, right hand there? Because my right hand's been, like, it's been really janky for a while. And he's like, maybe. But, like, Starscream's not getting any of the good scraps, and he's, like, living under this other warlord guy, and he's, like, starting to be like, I'm not getting anywhere in this outfit.
Okay, all right, so we're making him a little more sympathetic than he is in Transformers, then.
He can be a bastard, but Megatron's also a bastard, and I think we should give him, like, a legitimate grievance of some kind, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
It could be that Fujimoto knows that they're going to be crossing through the robot gang territory, and so he, like, packed some scrap to give them as tribute. But then, like, while that exchange is happening, while he's, like, paying them off, one of them catches sight of Gonzo, who does some stuff. Like, it could even be that Gonzo accidentally uses his magic to, like, make a machine start working again, or, like, repair a machine or do something like that, and the robots are like, oh man, he can get us back in working order.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
The whole time we're on this planet, it's just like an uphill battle against entropy, and this would, like, change the game for us.
So I actually like the idea that this section of the planet is like a big scrapyard. Spaceships, like, fly into low orbit and then just drop trash down onto the planet.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And so there's just, like, a bunch of big old piles of machines everywhere that they're walking through. And yeah, this is the territory of the robot gang.
Yeah.
Maybe Starscream notices the thing that Gonzo does and mentions it to the boss, and the boss, like, doesn't see it or doesn't get it. It's like, whatever, your eyes were deceiving you. You need to get new, what are robot eyes called?
Oculators.
You need to get new oculators. Yeah. So... And then afterwards, Starscream's gonna be like, oh, no, I did see it. That little thing did magic. He's one of those moon aliens.
Just to play into Starscream,
yeah.
Personally, I think he doesn't tell his boss what he saw. I think he sees it and believes that that's his way of overthrowing the Megatron counterpart. He maybe, like, sees Gonzo, sees what he can do, and then, like, gets a bunch of other robots together that are under him and is like, yeah, the boss wants us to go after this Fujimoto guy with his goat truck, but he doesn't tell Megatron.
His truck has 2 goat power.
That's right. 2 goat power.
So now we're at the fun and game section. This is the part of the movie that delivers on the promise of the premise. The part of the movie that is the movie. Whatever that high concept is, this is where we get to explore it and have fun with it in a bunch of different ways. There are some ongoing problems here, but they are in some ways surface level or fake minor problems, relative to what's coming later at least. So, and this section will also typically culminate with a minor victory, which will end up being short-lived. So, yeah, what is the fun and game section of this movie look like?
Well, it's road trip shenanigans, isn't it?
Yeah, guess so. Homeward bound nonsense.
Yeah, like running into some alien wildlife that they have to fight off.
Oh, Gonzo at one point does some, like, rodeo riding of some sort of alien creature, and, like, does the hand up in the air and gets the 8 seconds, the whole thing.
That's great.
Oh, they get high on an alien plant. That has to happen.
maybe in that earlier scene when Fujimoto first takes Gonzo to his house, Gonzo is like flipping through the TV or like looking through some of the books, and he like sees a picture of a rodeo rider, and that like plants in his head this idea that then when he sees this giant sandworm later on, he's just like, oh yeah, I want to do that thing I saw.
It would be interesting if, like, the people on Gonzo's moon are really, like, isolationist, but Gonzo's, like, obsessed with the culture of the wider galaxy. Maybe he was, like, an Ariel in Little Mermaid where he has, like, little artifacts. He's, like, excited to get his chance to go off planet now, but it's, like, really dangerous, all that stuff, so...
And I mean, obviously, you know, we have multiple encounters with Plainview and his men and his agents, and then we also have multiple encounters with Starscream and the robot gang.
Maybe what if Plainview's just alone, but he has, like, a couple little drones that go with him to, like, make him different from Starscream, who's, like, a whole faction?
Yeah, sure. He has a ship, too. So, like, maybe he's flying that around.
I have an idea of Plainview meeting with Starscream and trying to getting him to, like, work for him almost, and
that's pretty cool.
Starscream's like such a coward, and like Plainville's such a presence that he could like easily manipulate him, and like
that's a good midpoint thing. So actually what I think we should do is we should have Starscream for now chasing him around, and then like Plainview's gonna show up later and like power up all the Starscream's people in a bit. But yeah, that's really good. So
that's
for right
terrific.
now, I think we should just have it be Starscream's people chasing him around. So what's the like early chase scene they get into, or like the, you know, hijinks?
I was just thinking of like Sword and Sandals conventions, and for some reason I'm like imagining us replicating the chariot scene from Ben-Hur, but with the goat truck and like
a transformer
and a robot who's a car.
Oh my god, Dan, yes, I need this.
How do we make that happen? Are they just chasing and then they end up in a chariot race? They like go down some roads in like a Sword and Sandals town and then they end up in a chariot race?
I wasn't thinking a literal chariot race. I was thinking, you know, like there's like a canyon or something and they're like trying to race to the end. But I do kind of like the idea of them being in a chase scene and at some point they like burst through a wall and they're like in a chariot. There's like a chariot race going on that they end up becoming part of.
And then Gonzo gets first place.
Yes!
By a nose. Oh,
No.
that's perfect.
So, any other fun and game stuff? Any maybe some friendship stuff with them, or other hijinks they get into?
Gonzo finds like a small creature or like a baby, one of the goat creatures that's been abandoned or something, and he's like, "Oh man, I've never gotten to have a pet. We don't have that kind of thing on my planet," and wants it. And the guy's like, "No." Fujimoto's going, "That's not helpful. It's gonna make noise. It's gonna eat things."
You know what it has to be, right, Bob?
What?
It has to be a little baby chicken.
Yes.
Oh my god! A space chicken.
Yeah.
Or Gonzo trying to teach his close-up magic to Fujimoto.
Oh man, for a second I thought you were gonna say to the chicken.
Also, yes.
I got this great idea. Okay, so Fujimoto he's like, okay, you can do magic, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, okay, show me your magic. And then he's just doing like bullshit card tricks. And he's like, no, show me your actual magic. And he's like, oh, that stuff's boring. Anyone can do that. This is really, and he like does the thing where he like makes it look like he's taking his thumb off.
Fujimoto's all upset. Then like we see a scene later where he's like doing it himself.
Okay, I just had a thought. I want the downfall of Daniel Plainview to come when Fujimoto does close-up magic to him that he learned from Gonzo.
Thinking that, yes.
I don't know how we're gonna get there, but that's just something I want to.
Guys, you're so good.
So this crystal, is this just like the magic inside of him? Is this a thing that all the aliens have, or is Gonzo some sort of like chosen one among the aliens with an extra special crystal?
Isn't kind of the danger that Plainview is going to be exploiting this race of magic aliens? So it could even be that Gonzo is the worst of them. You know, he's just like, this is the worst alien, and he breaks the laws of physics without even thinking about it. Imagine what would happen if we could harvest this race.
That's a good point.
Their connection to magic comes from like a crystal that naturally grows inside of them or something. He wants to cut open these aliens, take their crystals, and use their power for himself. You know, like looking at them like a natural resource.
Yeah, I like that.
Is that how espers work in Final Fantasy something?
Very close, yeah. I mean, in Final Fantasy VI, espers die and their bodies turn into crystal, which you can then use for magic.
For Gonzo, it's just in the nose.
Oh, yeah.
Harvesting their noses? Oh, no.
Oh, I was gonna, or maybe like if they do die and turn into crystal, he just carries around grandma.
So now we are at the midpoint. This is the big reveal, the this changes everything sort of moment. Oftentimes there's an additional problem that is introduced to the story in addition to what they've had to deal with before. This problem, unlike the first one, is usually one that will actually force the characters to confront their like inner problems and their character arcs, whereas the other ones they could kind of deal with before. This is the thing like, no, you actually have to learn a lesson to defeat this new problem. We talked about this being Plainview has showed up and is now empowered Starscream's gang, right?
Maybe he, like, replaced the broken parts that we saw they couldn't get replaced under their old leader, and that's how he won them over, so now they're, like, new and improved.
Yeah, maybe there's some, like power source thing that they have, and he's like, oh, that thing's, like, a decade old. Here, take this new one, and he, like, puts it in him, and Starscream's, like, all his old, like, parts that he didn't have enough power for before, like, his old weapons, like, light back up, and he gets all this new stuff, or, he gives them missile launchers, all that nonsense.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe when this happens, like, Starscream goes back and, like, kicks out Megatron.
Oh, that'd be great.
He's like, I have this cutting edge technology now, so you're a pile of scrap, I'm taking over now, and everyone, we're gonna go get this magic alien.
So before he had, like, a little splinter group of, like, him and 4 other ones, but now he gets, like, 100 robots or something like that.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and then if we want him to have that character arc later, he can learn that he doesn't want to be bought out, and, like, he reaches a point where he gets tired of being, like, used by people above him.
Oh yeah, he realizes he just traded one boss for another boss because now Plainview controls him.
Yeah.
And he needs to, like, go build something for himself if he really wants to be his own man, that kind of thing.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I am behind Starscream now.
Aww.
I'm trying to think about how this is going to make Fujimoto get over his flaw. He needs to what? Because his whole thing is he needs to stop trying to use Gonzo and, like, see him as a person.
I wonder if maybe he comes to see Plainview as the personification of the galaxy that he wants to return to, and starts to realize, like, how shitty it is. And if he returns to the main galaxy, he's just going to end up like someone like Plainview, who just, like, looks at other people and the first thing he thinks of is evaluating how they can help him, or, like, how they can make him money or influence or whatever. And, like, that's the
Right.
way he's looking at Gonzo, is like, this thing can help me.
Maybe the reason that he will defeat the bad guys is because Plainview is still using them and, like, maybe planning on betraying them later. That could lead to, like, infighting or betrayal in their ranks, but he's going to eventually come around to a point where he's not using Gonzo, so him and Gonzo are going to be, like, more solid and have better teamwork and not going to, like, fall apart the way the antagonists are.
Yeah, for sure.
That is our midpoint. Now we are at the bad guys close-in section. It's sort of like the fun and game section because we are having a variety of different types of scenes and exploring the premise more. But now that we have this additional pressure of this second antagonist that's been introduced, the heroes are not doing as well. They have not learned their lesson, so they are now failing under the added pressure that came from the midpoint. So what is this going to look like?
It could be one of those that Fujimoto isn't respecting Gonzo just yet. Like, maybe they get to a point where he keeps trying to make him use his magic and he gets him exhausted, so he can't use magic anymore, then has to realize that he needs to start treating him differently, and they start getting cornered by someone because of this.
Yeah, maybe Gonzo is giving him advice about, like, how he can use his magic the best, but he's not he's like, don't do it that way, do it this way. And he's like, well, that's not really how it works, like, because I like part of it too being about, like, treating Gonzo's opinions, treating his, like, opinions and advice as legitimate and thinking of him as his, like, intellectual equal too a little bit.
Yeah, I like what Shannon was saying, because if we show Fujimoto as using Gonzo to solve their problems, that helps to draw a connection again between his motivation and Plainview's motivation, where it's like, you're both just wanting to use Gonzo. Neither of you is truly looking at him like a person.
So let's get into some specifics. What's this scene look like where he pushes Gonzo? Like, what's the setting? What are they doing? Let's try to, like, get specific with it.
Maybe they're being cornered by Starscream and his gang?
Where's this going to be? We're going to do this in a city. It'd actually be interesting if by now they got to, like, the capital city where, like, they could do the appeals thing, because we talked about that being a thing. So maybe this is a city that's, like, a little bit more technologically advanced and, like, government officials and stuff are slightly more present here, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe it's like they get in, he submits his petition for an appeal while they are waiting for their day in court, basically. Like, maybe Starscream and his gang manage to, like, sneak into the city.
Yeah.
They ambush Fujimoto and Gonzo somewhere. And yeah, Fujimoto is, like, ordering Gonzo to use his magic to get them out of it, but Gonzo just runs out of juice and probably ends up getting captured by Starscream, right?
Probably, yeah. I also want some sort of conversation when he's, like, turning the paperwork in. Maybe he, like, after he does that and he's talking to Gonzo before they get attacked, they have to have that conversation where it kind of dawns on Gonzo that he's just being used by this guy, and he's like Fujimoto's trying to BS him, but Gonzo sees through it a bit. He's like, wait, you're not really trying to protect me. And Fujimoto's like, well, if you go out there, like, everybody's gonna use you, because everybody's a giant asshole. This is a prison planet. Everyone here is jerks. They'll all betray you the first chance they get. I'm your best option here. You know, I'm the only one who's trying to protect you. And he's like, no, you just think everybody's a jerk because you're a jerk. But we've met a lot of nice people on our wild adventure so far, and you can't see that because you're just a big meanie.
Yeah.
Also, I'm imagining they get cornered in like a tavern of some kind with the swinging doors, and there's a piano player and all
Wow,
that.
we are all over the place with the genres today.
I know.
So they have a bar fight?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Bar fight.
Oh yeah, Gonzo gets thrown into a piano. And then is like playing it from the inside as they're trying to like hit the piano to like get him out of it.
Bob, I like that we can immediately turn to you anytime we need a Muppets moment.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm made of.
All right, so now we're at the all is lost moment. Are we going to have somebody get captured here? Is it going to be Fujimoto? Is it going to be Gonzo?
I like the idea that Gonzo gets captured. Fujimoto is maybe like left behind because Plainview is just like, you don't matter. Your one ticket off this planet is now gone. I have it. So just go back to your little town with your little telescope. Now, here's my question. Do we want Plainview to also betray Starscream at this point?
I think that could be interesting, because then if he betrays Starscream, then that could lead to how Fujimoto gets back at Plainview. Like, maybe he betrays Starscream, but then Starscream gets away and teams up with Fujimoto against Daniel Plainview, because he's like, that guy's a jerk and I just want to see him taken down.
Yeah, I like that.
Plainview has Gonzo. He's like going back to his ship. Starscream is like, but wait, I need that alien so I can continue my reign of terror, and I'm not letting you take him from me. And he like points his gun at Plainview, who, you know, with a push of the button, deactivates all the new tech he gave Starscream and just like kicks him away. And then later on, Starscream finds Fujimoto and is like, listen, I want to help you get back at him. That guy's a jerk. All he did was use me. He didn't even look at me like a person. He just looked at me like a thing to use. And Fujimoto's like, yeah, sounds like a real jerk.
Yeah. He's like, but I can tell you're not like that from that relationship with your little alien. You two are such good friends. I can tell you're a nice guy.
Yep.
Okay, here's one final thing. So Starscream, he was supposed to be able to like fly or turn into a plane, but that functionality has been broken for a long time, and like maybe not even Daniel Plainview fixed it. But then in order to get back, because Daniel Plainview's taken off planet, Fujimoto has to fix up Starscream and like let him go into his plane form again.
Yes. And that's how we get up to Plainview's ship.
Yes.
I love it.
That's so good.
I also feel like there should probably be a moment where after Gonzo is taken, that Fujimoto has like the person come out and be like, oh, you can make your appeal now, and he has to deal with that moment where he's just like, oh, I have to say no to this thing I've been chasing to go do the right thing.
Yeah, and it would be great. I like the idea that he actually has the evidence now. Maybe he got like his hands on a camera and got some footage and like has some hard proof, so he could go in and do it, but he decides not to go save Gonzo.
Yep, absolutely.
So cool. So now we have the break into Act 3. I think this is Fujimoto fixing up Starscream, and then they take off and are heading up to go after Plainview's ship. Next, we have the finale. This is the final showdown. Usually here, we will see whether or not the characters have truly learned their lesson or not, and we get to resolve all the big conflicts that are going on. So what is this like? What is our big climax?
So the elements that we want to bring in are Fujimoto winning with close-up magic.
Yes, very important.
And also him, sticking his neck out for Gonzo. He at first surrenders to Plainview and is like, listen, if you're going to go through with this, then you're going to need me. Like, I know more about the way this works than anyone. And like, that's how he gets close to Plainview. We said earlier that Plainview had deactivated Starscream's weapons using a little device.
Oh, yeah.
What if Fujimoto lifts it from him and then uses it to restore Starscream's weapons? And then Starscream, like, blows up the ship.
Oh, that's great. Maybe, like, Gonzo did a thing earlier where, he, like, puts his arm around Fujimoto in, like, a friendly gesture. Like, hey, buddy. And then he uses that to, like, pick his pocket.
Yeah.
And he does it just to, like, tease Fujimoto. He's not actually, like, stealing stuff from him. And, like, he's just, like, messing with him.
Yeah.
And then he replicates that same technique to, like, take the little remote control and then reactivate Starscream.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. And then so he starts shooting at Plainview's ship, and then him and Gonzo, are they in low orbit? Do they like jump out and then Starscream catches them or what? Like, or
Or Gonzo uses his magic to save them.
Oh, sure, that works.
Yeah, that's whenever he actually does like some decent magic.
Right. He makes a little force field around them or something or whatever. I don't know.
He
Teleports
makes
them.
a giant spectral chicken that, like, I don't know, brings them gently down to land.
Oh,
Well,
Sure.
In Sailor Moon fashion, this is where the theme song starts and she gets angel wings, so he could just get chicken wings.
yeah, there we go. Here's the transformation that we were looking for.
Oh yeah, he gets his transformation. That's so great.
He turns into a chicken-themed prince.
So now, importantly, does Starscream get to survive this, or does he just have like a heroic self-sacrifice thing to save them?
I want him to survive this time.
I kind of do too.
Lame.
He's a good
Yeah.
dude. He's become
All
a good
right,
dude.
fine.
Well, look, the last time we did a story similar to this, Catra died.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we've already done that story. Like, I'm more interested in, okay, how does this person who was kind of not a hero, are they changed? Are they still an asshole? Like, what happens?
Okay, yeah, I can live with that.
Well, yeah, because I think he goes back to his robot gang and is like actually making changes to them and like making them into a force for good on this world.
I like that. So they're a benevolent robot mafia.
Yeah.
Would be a shame if somebody were to tidy up your garden.
So finally, we have the closing image. This is the opposite of the opening image. We get to see a final snapshot of what all of these characters' lives are like now that they have gone through this journey. Also, a very important thing. We normally put a cat somewhere in our stories, and Kit yelled at me that we didn't have one in Ouroboros. So there's a cat at some point. There, Kit. Are you happy?
No,
Oh, Kit's here! Holy shit!
I heard the word cat and I ran, and I was so disappointed.
We can have Starscream rescue a cat out of a tree.
Oh, he has a little robo-cat.
Oh, God bless. Thank you
Oh,
for
yeah,
saving
there we
this
go.
movie.
Robo-
All right,
cat.
great. What else happens during the closing image?
Do we want to say that Fujimoto goes to the moon with Gonzo and meets all of his people?
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, and then like all the rest of them are also a little bit into close-up magic as well. Not as much as Gonzo, but
Yeah.
they're like he does one of the things and they're like, "Oh my god."
Oh, man.
If Fujimoto's like helping them make machines and then they're helping him learn close-up magic.
He's like, "Can I learn actual magic?" They're like, "No."
They're like, "You don't have a grandma crystal."
Yeah.
No,
That's
you
right.
can't.
Why would you want actual magic? Look, my thumb is coming off.
Everyone has heart crystals, whatever.
All right, logistical question though, because this was a prison planet and getting off the planet was a huge deal. How are they getting in and off the planet? Is can
magic?
Starscream travel off world or?
How about magic? I don't know. Does magic work for you?
Spectral space chickens.
That's right.
Gonzo just teleports them. He's like, I kept telling you to stop, and then I knew how to work this. I could have done this the whole time. You wouldn't listen to me.
Oh, I love the idea. He's like, "You could have done this the whole time." He's like, "Yeah, but the goat chariot."
Anything else now that we have reached the end and we know everything? Are there any deleted scenes that people want to backfill now that we know how the story is ending?
I don't know. I just want Rizzo to be in there somewhere. I don't know where. I'm trying to think about. I was like a robot Rizzo. That was a thought that crossed my mind.
So we have a robot rat and a robot cat?
Oh, yeah, that's it. You're right. They'd fight. But maybe like Rizzo. Rizzo's probably done some illegal things. He might be on that planet.
I can see a robot Rizzo being one of Starscream's little henchmen, and maybe he becomes friends with Gonzo by the end after the
Yeah.
robot mafia reforms slightly.
I like it.
So yeah, that's our thing. The only other thing we're going to need is a title. So
Oh, boy.
I got nothing on this. I'll think about it. But what do you guys think?
Could we just call it Moonstone? Like maybe that's the type of crystal that the Gonzo aliens have?
Oh,
That's not
I like
bad. I'm trying to think if there's some like off-worlder or something.
The Muppet who fell to Earth.
that.
The Muppet who fell to Prisonia.
Prisonia. Oh, what if we call it Ben-Hur 2?
Dad, I don't. You
Done.
tried this with Walt Disney's 1984. I don't like you like making these stealth sequels or remakes of other movies at the
Listen,
end.
Walt Disney's 1984 is still the single best idea I've ever had on this podcast.
What about Mac and Me at the beginning? I'm looking up phrases that contain the word moon, like idioms. Shoot the moon is not bad. Promise the moon. How about over the moon?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
There you go. I like it.
Cool. Over the moon it is.
How's everybody feel about this? Shannon, how do you feel about the thing you created?
I feel good. I love this monster.
Would you own it on DVD?
Yes, but I don't know how much of a compliment that is for me, because I have, as someone who watches a lot of There Will Be Blood, but also watches a bunch of Mac and Me.
Tom, Bo, the cat thanks. Over to Twitter. Thank you to Jackson Bruheim, who, by the way, drew Scorpia from Shipwrecked wearing her tattered orca costume.
Oh, that was a really great piece of fan art. I love that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you to Unpacking the Horror of Power Pack, Earth Mofo, Matthew Laserwitz, Cosplay Devotee, Cosplay Fiend, Alexander, aka Ducko, Cool Down Now, Icon Jade, Florian, Dr. Jake Einstein.
I think it's supposed to be Jakenstein.
I mean, but that's not how the vowels do. That's not how German is pronounced. Thank you to Vander Turner, Adam Thanos Pod, and Big Trick or Treat Energy.
That's pretty good.
And that's by Fat Blunt 69.
Oh, Fat Blunt 69.
Over Temples, thank you to Not Very Bright Raven, Sid Rabbit Vlog, and Ink the Cryptid. And on Facebook, thank you to Kosuke Takahashi, Robert Ramsey, Jeffrey Ketchum, and Fatblunt69.
Oh, wait, I never get to say it because you always go fast on Tumblr, which I understand. But for Not Very Bright Raven, caw.
Wah! Raven's got that deep, shitty voice. I love it. Like a smoker's crow.
And thanks also to Shannon for joining us for what was actually a very, very fun ride. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad you were able to join us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a delight.
Anything you want to plug?
I guess you can follow me on Twitter at Shannon Manor. I have a webcomic right now that's Dragon Sanctuary at dragonsanctuarycomic.com. I am on 2 podcasts, one called Kingdom Smarts, where I get to explain all of Kingdom Smarts to my friend Jake. And
All of
one
Kingdom
called...
Hearts?
Oh yeah, all of Kingdom Hearts, sorry. No, I explained my own podcast back then.
It's a recursive podcast.
Yeah, it's just a snake eating its own tail. And I'm also on the Cool Kids Table, which is a podcast with me and some friends, and we play D&D and other tabletop games kind of badly.
You should check out everything that Shannon does. It's great. And if you follow her on Twitter, then you can see some wonderful art that she did, which is of her Gemsona and my Gemsona fused.
Yep.
And it made my month. It was just the best thing I've ever seen. I want to thank you for that, Shannon, because it was so great.
Yeah,
You're very
fantastic.
welcome. Whenever I see people making Gemsonas, I just come out of the shadows, be like, can I fuse it with mine? Please hand it to me.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be a notch in your bedpost, Shannon.
I do what I can.
Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Collaboratory. Next week, Toph versus Alex Lewis Armstrong versus Tara.
Smash Metafiction is produced by Dan Mulcairn, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, The Builder.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
In that case, I do like the extra idea, because in my head, no one can be Gonzo except Gonzo, so it's just a bunch of humans and Gonzo shows up, but the fact that he's magic is the weird part, not the fact that he's Gonzo.
That's like such a Muppet thing, though. They're like, it's not, the rest of the stuff isn't weird. It's this one thing that's weird.
Yeah.
Does this movie have Muppets?
Oh shit, are they all Muppets except for like one human?
Except Daniel Plainview?
No, they're all Muppets except Gonzo.
Oh, what? It's just played by, what, Frank Oz, Steve Whitmire? I can't remember which one.
Played by Seth Rogen. I don't know.
I love it. I love it.
All right, let's
Wait,
let's
I
move
have
on.
to say one thing. Daniel Plainview, totally Sam Eagle.
Oh,
Yes.
that's so great.